A British officer walks up to an American fort under a white flag and demands they lower the American flag. They're outnumbered 5-1, gunpowder's almost spent, and one rifleman says, "Touch that flag and I'll shoot you myself." This is the story of Middle Fort and the kind of defiance that built America. By the fourth year of the Revolution, the war didn't look like neat lines and fancy uniforms anymore. On the frontier, it was raids, burned farms, families running in the dark, and the kind of violence that does not come with warning. The settlers in Schoharie Valley lived under the threat long enough to do the only thing you can do when help isn't coming. They built forts. Upper Fort, Middle Fort, Lower Fort. A few miles apart along the creek, the defense fell to local militia and hard men who knew what captivity meant out there. Then Sir John Johnson launched a deep raid into the valley. With a mixed force, British regulars, loyalist units, Butler's Rangers, Hessians, and native warriors moving with them. We'll call it 1,000 men. And Middle Fort had about 200 men inside. They're outnumbered roughly 5-1, and they know exactly what happens if the fort falls. Early after dawn on October 17th, a local farmer sees the column slipping past the upper fort. The alarm gun fires, and down the valley you can hear it. Warning shots echoing through the timber and through the cold air, but you don't need a cannon to tell you what's happening. Smoke does that just fine. Burning barns, killing livestock, burning crops, they're stripping the valley like it's a punishment. At Middle Fort, the defenders get ready. Major Thomas Eckerson calls for volunteers to scout the enemy's progress. Of course, Tim Murphy steps up. It's exceedingly windy, so the men leave their hats and tie handkerchiefs to their heads. The scouts move toward the brick church, trying to get eyes on the column, and suddenly the enemy is right there. Indians amongst them, loyalists, men who know these woods too. The scouts fall back toward the fort, skirmishing a little bit as they retreat. They take cover behind a board fence, and from that fence, Murphy spots troops trying to outflank them. He warns Eckerson, and the order comes, "Retreat now." Just as they pull back, the advancing company levels muskets and fires. Fence boards splinter. A few of the riflemen's coats are shot through, and every single one of them makes it back to the fort alive. As the enemy brings up small artillery, a 3-pound field cannon and little mortar, but the guns don't do what Johnson hopes. His own report later admits it. His gunners don't know their work well enough to hurt the fort, so the wall holds. But the real problem is not the walls, it's what's inside them. Because while the cannon isn't breaking the fort is breaking down. They're nearly out of gunpowder. They're out of gunpowder. Inside the fort, women are preparing spears, pitchforks, and boiling water, not as some poetic symbol, but as a last plan. Because if the gunpowder runs out, the only thing left is spears, pitchforks, boiling water, and bare hands. So Johnson tries a different weapon, not a cannon, a flag of truce. An officer approaches from Butler's Rangers with a fifer beside him playing Yankee Doodle, not for morale, for mockery. They stop outside the fort and demand surrender. Major Woolsey, commanding the fort, orders the men to hold fire, but Murphy, knowing exactly what surrender can mean out here on the frontier, levels his rifle anyway. He fires a shot right over their heads. The truce party backs off. 10 or 15 minutes passes and they come forward again, white flag in the air. Woolsey turns on Murphy now and he orders him clear as day, do not fire. Murphy fires again, another warning shot right over their heads. Again, the truce party withdraws. Now it's the third approach. Woolsey steps up and gives the order that changes everything. Lower the American flag. Not consider terms, not hear them out. Lower the flag. And Murphy snaps because Murphy isn't arguing about etiquette, he's arguing about what happens next. He turns, rifle still in hand, and threatens the unthinkable. Any man who touches that flag will be shot. Woolsey threatens him, orders his arrest, but nobody moves to take Murphy. Nobody. Because every man inside that fort understands the truth. If that flag comes down, the fort is done. There are families inside that are done. Woolsey's nerve breaks. He withdraws into the cellar of the stone building, and command slips out of his hands. With no sign the fort is weakening, and with time bleeding away, Johnson abandons the siege mid-afternoon and continues burning down the valley. He probes the lower fort too. Can't break that one either. Then he turns out, toward the Mohawk Valley, trying to escape back to Canada. Later, people in Congress are furious. James Madison writes about the frontier being laid in ashes, about the valley's wheat supply being ruined. But here's the part that matters. The fort's held. And after that flag was hoisted up on the frontier, it has never come down. And I want you to really think about what this was. Middle Fort wasn't saved by perfect logistics. It wasn't saved by superior firepower. It was saved by people who refused to be broken. When they were outnumbered 5-1, low on gunpowder, staring down the kind of captivity that'll turn your stomach. That moment, when Wolseley orders the flag lowered, and Murphy basically says, "Touch it and you die." That's not clean patriot history. That's raw. That's ungoverned, and whether you love that or hate it, you cannot pretend that that kind of defiance didn't build this place.